Hey guys, and thank you for joining me today for my sinking funds video. So I promised you guys this video since I was closing out the end of January, but it's kind of took me a while to actually put it up because there's just been a lot going on as far as conversations that we've been having between me and my husband on how we want to handle our finances and our budget all together. So I already knew that we were going to be changing the way we were doing sinking funds. So I'm just going to kind of go over those changes and what we decided on this video today. So if you remember from last month, this was kind of the layout that I had, and I had all these things on there. When I originally started this year, I had a full-blown list of basically wish list of stuff that I knew we spent money on that I wanted to make sure I accounted for, because I thought, hey, I'm being proactive, I'm planning for it, it's okay. But we have been sitting down and we've been wanting to pay off our debt. So we've been focusing a lot on debt payoff. And because of that, there's a lot of these categories and stuff that we're like, we don't really need this right now. These are nice categories that maybe we want to have in the future, but for where we are in our debt payoff and our financial journey right now, we want all our funds to be thrown into paying off debt. And then later on, once our debt's paid off, we can focus on all these fun categories. So there's things like, Six Flags and, all this other home maintenance and all that. We've been watching, me particularly, been watching a lot of Dave Ramsey, and his main thing is to make sure you have $1,000 emergency fund while you're paying off debt. And then after that, you start building your 3 to 6 months of your rainy day fund. So because of that, we had things like car maintenance, home maintenance, and all this kind of stuff that, yes, are important, but where we are in our journey, things that are going to happen, that's what our $1,000 emergency fund is. In case anything happens, we have our $1,000. So in case a part breaks in the house or something, we have the $1,000 that we can put towards that, and then we can build up our emergency fund again and then continue focusing on paying debt. So where we are in our journey right now, our focus is to pay off debt. So because of that, all of these categories, or the majority of these categories, we're basically cutting them out of our budget for now. There's certain things that, like the ring, we have to pay our ring. We have the ring security system, and that's $100 per month. And so we need to make sure we pay that off. I had it in the sinking funds because I thought, hey, let's put away a little bit every month. And then that way, by the time it comes, we already have it, which is a really good idea. But at the same time, it's only $100. And I don't want to be focusing on all this other stuff, because what I need to focus on right now is our family paying off our debt. So because of that, I'm just cutting off all these categories, and I need to make sure that I account for these things on the month that they occur. So I was trying to keep our monthly budget really consistent, but where we are right now, even if there's a little fluctuation, that's okay, because we're going to handle things as they come, but we're going to focus all our extra income on paying off our debt. So things like ring, where that'll end up falling is, if you see on my monthly budget for February, I have this monthly bills. So this category is to account, or this section is to account for those items. So monthly bills. So let's say this is a month that ring was due. I would put it on here. I'd put ring due, the $100 that's due, and then I would put it as a line item in my budget for this month. And so that's how I plan on handling a lot of those sinking funds, because a lot of those things are things that I can just handle as they come. Things like pets, things like clothing. We don't necessarily need to buy that right away, but if we have to buy something, then we can account for it in our monthly budget and then just deal with it then, as opposed to putting all that money away, because then I have all this money in my checkings account, which could have been thrown towards debt, to get out of debt, because our main focus right now is to get out of debt. That being said, it doesn't mean that I'm eliminating sinking funds altogether. As you can see, I still have a sinking funds item on my budget. What that is, though, is that it's going to be broken down this year into two different things. So here's a section where I have my sinking funds. As you can see, it's significantly smaller than what it was before, and it's probably still even bigger than what it needs to be. The two items that I am going to continue to focus on as far as sinking funds, and this is because there's kind of no way around it, is Geico, because that is insurances. Like, we need to pay our car insurances, and I don't want to deal with those as they come, because those amounts are pretty high. I think the motorcycle insurance we pay, I believe the insurance is for a year. So that ends up being like $900. So to not account for that and to just try and pay $900 in 1 month, that's like a big chunk of change. And I really don't want to do that. So what I'm going to do is for insurances, so which is our car and motorcycle insurance, those Geico insurances, I am going to put away money monthly to have in a sinking fund account for those, because these are really big ticket items that I don't want to deal with as we go. Like I mentioned, stuff like buying stuff for pets or clothing, or if I need to buy a yearbook, those we could definitely account for as they come every month. But things like Geico, since they're such a big ticket, like expensive things, I don't want to do that. So we are going to have the sinking funds for that. So right now, the Geico, our balance is 0. We don't have anything in there right now, but we know that we're going to have to start putting away for it. Another thing that I want to note for my Geico insurance is that it's broken down into 2 parts. So our motorcycle insurance is going to be due in June, and that is for a year. So that is fine. That's going to come on in June. We still have time to save up for that. The other one is our car insurances. And our car insurances, they have to be paid in May and then December, because they're only 6 months premium. So those are 2 different, I mean, it's going to be one pot, but I have to make sure I account for the amounts that I'm putting in there for the fact that it's going to be paid the first 6 months, and then I got to pay it again the second 6 months. So the amounts that I'm dividing have to be whatever's due whenever it's due. So let's say May. So right now we're in February. So February, March, April, May. So the amount that's due in May has to be divided by 4 so that I can break it off and pay it these next couple of months. So that way in May, I'm not stuck with like a $900, $1,000 premium to pay up front. And then same thing for when it comes to December. So after I paid in May, I have June, July, August, September, October, November, December, right? That's 7 months. That sounds a little wrong. So maybe it's due in November. I don't know. But anyways, I'll have another 6 months to pay it off. So I'll get the amount that's due and I'll divide it by the 6. So the amount that I put monthly will be a little bit less because I have more time, and then I'd be able to pay it off that way. So because that's such a high ticket item though, I do want the sinking funds for it. Most of our income is going to be focused towards paying off debt. But since these amounts are so high and they're big things that we'll have to pay at a time, we don't want to just wait till that month to pay it off, because then imagine how our budget's going to look that, you know, we have all this stuff in the now, all of a sudden we're throwing in $1,000 for insurance. That's a lot. So we are going to do the sinking fund for that. The other thing that we do need to account for is travel. And so if you follow Dave Ramsey, you know that he says, you know, if you're paying off debt, you should not go into a restaurant and you should not be traveling. And although we do feel that way, like we do feel like we shouldn't be doing those extra things, the travel that we're accounting for is not just, oh my God, fun travel. It's travel for my daughter's cheer competitions. So that was one of the things that when we sat down and we did our budget and we did our plan, that we did say that although Dave Ramsey's plan is to be extreme, we do want to be just extreme in a lot of aspects, but the one thing we did not want to take away was our daughter's cheer. They're both, our 2 oldest daughters are in competitive cheer, and that's something we did not want to take away from them. And since we didn't want to take that away from them, we have to make sure that we're including that in our budget. So we do need to travel. My daughter has a competition this month out of town, so we'll have to travel for that. So I need to make sure that we have funds in our sinking fund for that. And then in May, she will be traveling to Orlando. So we also want to make sure that we have that money to go there. Now, we did make the decision that originally, like last year when we went to Orlando, we stayed for extra days and we did Universal and we went down to the, you know, Disney downtown and we went shopping and all that kind of stuff. We did all that stuff last time. We did make the decision that although we're keeping them in cheer and we are letting them travel for competitions, we're not going to do that extra stuff though. So we are going to go and take her to Orlando for her competition, but we're not going to go to the parks because that's a lot of money and all that money can be put towards debt. So that's kind of how we sacrificed in our budget. We decided that we're not going to take away the cheer, but a lot of that extra stuff we are going to take away. And there's a lot of extra stuff that we wanted, particularly in our sinking funds, that we're cutting out. That way we can kind of accommodate and make up for the fact that we do spend so much money in cheer. We cut out in different categories and in different places so that we can even it out. So, but like I mentioned, we do need to travel for her competitions. So we are including that in our sinking funds. So that is also a category that we are not getting rid of. So our sinking funds went from that previous list where it was really, really long. I'm trying to see if I can pull it up. I don't remember where it was. So we went from our sinking funds that was this big whole, practically its own page, to just 2 categories. And it's just because those are 2 big ticket price items that we know we're going to have to pay, and we don't want to deal with last minute. Anything else that comes up, we're just going to have to deal with our emergency fund if it's an emergency, or putting it in our budget for the month. But everything else, the focus really is to pay off debt. So these are the only 2 that we'll be tracking for sinking funds. So that's kind of what we decided to do. And this is why I kind of wanted to have this conversation with you guys, and why I wanted to make it a separate video, to kind of let you guys know that we totally agree with being prepared with sinking funds, because, you know, it's so much easier. But when you're in the position that we are, where our focus is paying off debt, we don't want to focus on putting all that money in a bank account and just storing it for when those things happen, when we could be using it to pay off debt. And as things happen, then we can pay those off. Because if we had put all that money away and we were just putting it in the side for sinking funds, I mean, that could have been getting rid of 2 credit cards in 1 month. That way we didn't have those anymore. And that's kind of what we want. We really just want to get away from owing people money. And so we're going to throw most of our focus into that, with the exception of these 2 items, because these are 2 that we do feel that we just can't get rid of. It's not beneficial for us to get rid of these, because then they're going to hit us so hard when they're due or when they happen, and we don't want that to happen. So we are going to plan for these, but everything else we'll deal with as they come, and if it's an emergency, we'll use our emergency fund for that. But yeah, that's just kind of what I wanted to talk about as far as sinking funds, and just kind of let you know where we are. So as I'm checking in with my budget, and you're seeing, you know, what we're putting and why we're doing what we're doing, you understand now why we're not putting as much towards sinking funds as we were into all the categories that we were, why we kind of, you know, brought it in and just made these 2 categories, and everything else is in debt, because our focus really is going to be to pay off debt. That's our goal. That's what we agreed on together as a couple, and that's just what we're focusing on. So yeah, that's just kind of what I wanted to cover. If you're interested in anything else from our February budget, the videos should be up in the channel now. I'll put them in the descriptions. Go ahead and check those out. If you haven't already, don't forget to hit subscribe, and then that way you can get the updates on our budget as we continue to go through our journey and as we go through our weekly check-ins. So you want to be subscribed, that way you get those notifications so you can check out those videos as they come. If you haven't already, don't forget to head on to Instagram and follow me at Plan with Soto. And until next time, bye guys.